Baseball is alive and well on Cestus 3. Jake knows his dad only cooks Hungarian food when he's in a really good mood. And Brunt, FCA, says he got the job at FCA with hard work, bribes, sucking up to the boss, just like any other job. Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Seventh Rule with Cirroc Lofton.
Hello, hello, hello.
Wow, we got a bonus hello. This is a special day. This is feeling like a special day. Was it because of the baseball is back on Cestus 3? That put me in a good mood.
Yeah, it's a regular Cestus pool.
Oh, zip, zip. I was wrong. It's going to be a bad day. My name's Ryan T. Husk, by the way. Today we are reviewing Deep Space Nine, Season 3, Episode 23, Family Business, Double Entendre, as always, with Star Trek and Deep Space Nine. Titles, always a great one. Directed by the late, great, incredible, beautiful Rene Auberjonois, and written by our friends Ira Steven Bear and Robert Hewitt Wolf. Yeah, how cool is that Rene directed it? Always, when you see directed by one of the actors, you always say, okay, I know that actor is not going to be in this episode very much. And he only had the one scene where he goes like, Quark says, how do you know that? He goes, huh. How are you, man?
I'm doing good. Actually, I enjoyed that scene because of the irony of Quark thinking about his own personal interrogation with his mom and extracting information from her. And I thought that was I like the way that Rene played the irony there. Like, is this guy telling me? Is he saying what I think he's saying?
Right. And speaking of which, I'm glad you brought that up because our buddy Ira Bear's middle name is actually Nee.
Oh, okay. All right. I guess it's going to be...
Okay, we both started off down here.
Should we go back to the top? Back to the top.
Back to one. Self-sealing.
Back to the one.
Self-something.
Seventh rule, take two. No, but I did like that. I actually didn't pay attention to the fact that Rene directed the episode. I'm glad you brought that up. And he did was just a little piece, and so did O'Brien and Bashir. So I'm sure all of those guys really had the week off, and I'm sure we're happy to because, sometimes you get stressed and overworked when you're doing these things.
You're right. That's something I hadn't really considered is they still brought them each in for like one silly little scene here or there just so that they could collect their paycheck and justify it. But really, they all worked one day and they had the week off. And you're right. It's probably because, you guys have been slogging through. This is episode 23 in a season. You guys are probably like, I'll take any day off at this point.
I'll take any day off. And I mean, with the exception of Rene, who actually took the day off, but ends up having to do probably more work.
A busier week, yeah.
Yeah, the amount of preparation involved with directing, it's a full-time thing. There is no a break during the daytime when you're filming, and probably not at night when you're preparing for the next day. So,
and in order for those people to get a day off, that means other actors had to do the heavy lifting. And we really get to feature these other actors. Some are regulars or, recurring, and others are first-timers. But first, let's talk about, because I totally keep forgetting about this, the most important thing to talk about besides this entire episode is that you guys can go ahead and go to patreon.com/the7th-rule if you'd like to give us a virtual high five, monetarily speaking. Or if you don't want to do anything monetarily speaking, just make sure you subscribe to these videos, subscribe to wherever you're watching this, comment in the comment section below, give us a like, share this video, and that will help us a ton because our marketing department's on strike lately. So we've got this giant marketing department, and they've been let them. It's actually a vacation. Anyway.
Well, they're dealing with the NFL and the NBA since they came back, so that's their main account, and then we're their third largest account. But,
right. And baseball. Whew. There's too much to talk about. Let's stick with what we're talking about. The actors that really stepped up and carried this episode, right?
Yeah, and speaking of which, I wanted to ask you about the actor that played the FCA liquidator. Is that wasn't because my guess was, and I didn't look it up.
I
I'm
think
just
your guess
guessing.
is
Was
going to
that
be
Jeffrey
right.
Combs?
Yes, sir.
No.
Yes. Oh man.
Oh man, and he totally does. He doesn't look anything like Jeffrey Combs.
You know,
Well, he doesn't. I mean, I couldn't find anything that would any distinction, anything
yeah,
that would like
but
his eyes. I was looking at.
your video froze for like 1 second, and I was looking forward to seeing your reaction when I said yes, and it was stolen from me. But how did you figure out it was him?
Because of his way of talking, just being around him enough. First of all, he's a fantastic actor,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the first indicator. Like this guy's a really good actor, like exceptionally good.
That
He's
narrows
not
it
just
down.
he's not a day player, and he's not just a guy that came in for one thing. This guy is really, really good. So that was one thing that I noticed.
Mm-hmm.
But then I started to look for things or elements about his facial features to see if that would give it away. And I missed his name in the credits, so I didn't see that. But I started to study his face a little bit. I couldn't find anything that gave it away that it was Jeffrey Combs. I mean, not the eyes, nothing, the cheekbones. There was nothing
Wow.
recognizable. Yeah.
High praise to the
So
makeup department there then.
yeah, the only thing I had to go on was how great a performer he is. And I said, this guy is so good. It's got to be Jeffrey Combs. There's no way. So
Yeah,
that's how I got it.
it's definitely a fan favorite character, but Jeff has a lot of fan favorite characters. This is probably his third most popular character. The top two are, of course, Wei-Yun, who is my favorite. And the other one, who I think gets more first place votes than even Wei-Yun, is Shran, an Andorian character on Enterprise. He kind of plays Captain Archer's foil, and especially for like the fourth season, the entire fourth season. But anyway, yeah, Jeff Combs doing what Jeff Combs does best, showing off an acting clinic and calling it Deep Space Nine.
Well, he has certain things in his mannerisms. He takes pauses in certain places when he's delivering his lines. Those pauses kind of gave me a little bit of a hint. His facial expression, like when he was blocking his face from looking at Quark's mom,
Yes,
the way he did it,
he's
the
like,
way
oh God, I can't.
yeah, the way he did it, just I was like, that body motion, the movement. That's a Jeffrey Combs move, So he has signature aspects of his performance, not his face, not his not even his voice, just his performance, his body movements, and the way he delivers lines
Right.
are so signature that I was able to deduce it just from that. I really didn't know he was going to be in this episode.
It really is like he has his own brand, like the Jeffrey Combs brand, which is kind of out there, kind of eccentric, but not so far that it's like extreme, just enough to where he can hit completely different characters in totally different angles, but all of them being, very creative in their own way. Like none of them are just like a regular dude. He doesn't play a regular dude. He plays a very interesting character. The first person that actually opened my eyes to being a brand was actually Shaquille O'Neal, which is something totally different. He was talking about himself as a brand, and I realized you're right that very good basketball players, very famous or great actors, musicians, they have a brand. They start to just say, look, this is my brand, this is my company, this is what I represent. And Jeff Combs definitely does, I think.
He's a really talented man, and really a good person when you get to know him and talk with him. He's such a pleasant person to be around. But yeah, he did a fantastic job as this, IRS agent.
Totally.
Collecting inventory. I like the pauses. For example, the first pause he did, which I really enjoyed, was when Quark was asking about, do you have an inventory of what it is? And he just kind of looked. He did one of these look backs, like if you pay me, but he didn't say it. He didn't say it, and eventually Quark understood it to say, "Oh yeah, I have to bribe you." But so yeah, that I can't say enough about Jeffrey Combs. He's just a really great guy.
Yeah, and we also got to see the Ferengi homeworld. I think, was this the first time we gotten to see it so far in Deep Space Nine? And
So.
I love it when they expand our knowledge of a certain race. Like we saw the Trill homeworld in that fantastic episode that wasn't fantastic.
Oh yeah.
The one where they're in the milky water and like little worms are squirming between their legs or whatever. But and then we see Cardassia, which was a great one when Miles goes over there, and then we get to see the Klingon homeworld when Quark goes over to marry Grilka. And now we get to see Ferenginar and all of their just outrageous customs, and they're like, we already think they're weird when they're on the station, but to see them amongst themselves where everything is about money, like, can I have a seat? Oh, that's three strips of Latinum. He goes, I'll just stand. He goes, that's one strip of Latinum. It's cost you a buck just to stand.
Yeah, just to stand.
Yeah.
Remind me of being on an airline these days. So, but yeah, we got to see the world. I noticed that the arches in the doorway were even low for Ferengi, and I thought that was kind of an architectural thing that they did, where they had these really low doorway arches that even Quark had to duck underneath.
Right, I noticed that too. Yeah,
I was just saying, maybe they evolved from an even shorter species. Maybe they were shorter even before. But I'd like to see their homeworld. I like to see their customs. I thought this episode really did something that, I think in the documentary, Ira was talking about different things that he felt like DS9 checked off, right?
Yeah,
they addressed racism, right? They addressed sexuality. They addressed a lot of these different topics, and he went through and very smartly checked off things that he did touch on or maybe even expanded on. And this one, for me, would fall under the category of women's rights,
Right.
It's under that umbrella for me.
Yeah, especially because they went so extreme with it. Like completely outrageous, impossible, baffling, ridiculous, extreme with it. But then when you stop and think about it, you say, well, it was pretty bad 50 years ago.
Yeah.
Like it makes you say, well, this is really extreme, but we were pretty bad a few decades back. You know what I mean? Like if this was done, in the 50s or in the 20s, 1920s, it wouldn't land the same way because they'd be like, what's the big deal? Yeah, cool. Women don't wear clothes. Awesome.
She's supposed to be cooking. So yeah, there would be a whole lot of stereotypes that wouldn't really land the way they did. And when it wasn't as absurd. I mean, I guess having her naked all the time is the real major absurdity. But
yeah, because we don't. You wouldn't necessarily want your wife going to the grocery store naked, right? Or inviting friends over. Your wife inviting friends over for a couple drinks naked, or things like you'd be like, maybe you can have some clothes, I guess.
Yeah. But there were other aspects like, where she says, she has an opinion on things or she's talking when she shouldn't be talking. Those are kinds of concepts that actually did exist.
Totally.
In our culture, which is, very sad to say. But, this would fall under that particular category. I thought it was really good to see Rom and Quark as brothers. Usually, even though they are brothers on the station, because Rom has a subservient role to his bigger brother, it feels as though he's like the dad almost, or something else. It just doesn't feel, you don't really see the dynamic underneath the umbrella of the mother or a
Hmm.
parental figure. So I like to see that. I like to hear the backstory about their father and their genetics, where they come from. So I enjoyed that.
Yeah, and they definitely did act like siblings when they're rolling around on the ground and pulling on each other's ears and just wrestling around like two little stinkers. Um, and you definitely see the Rom and Moogie love, where he's like putting his head on her naked lap and just nuzzling around in there. And I kind of noticed that like Rom, he kind of sings when he says Moogie. He doesn't just say like Moogie and stretched out, but he kind of goes like Moogie. He just I'm like it's almost like he's singing out there for a little while,
Yeah, yeah.
But as we know, he does sing. So I wonder if that's kind of plays into part of what he does, at least his vocal delivery.
I think so, and I think it's pretty. It's great because he just makes he creates this whole nickname thing where it makes it just feel like it's personal to him. I really liked his performance in this. I liked him stepping up to Quark and kind of standing up to him and slapping him around like, hey, can't you see what's going on?
Yeah.
And you know, I also wanted to say that the woman that played Moogie had a few moments that I thought were pretty special. I liked the way her eyes would light up in certain moments, and she conveys so much emotion with her eyes.
Right. Andrea Martin. Um, Now, this was when watching these scenes, I couldn't help but picture, what Armin and Aron would always talk about, where they would get together on the weekend and they would practice their scenes. I think they would go to Armin's place. I think that's what it was, and they probably did that almost every week, with whatever scenes Armin was doing. Um, but this was probably a very heavy weekend for them because they had like 3/4 of the scenes. And I can't help but just picture those days because they talk about them fondly, and just picturing uh, Max and Armin and Andrea and Jeff Combs all getting together, probably in the valley somewhere, and at Armin's place, and just going over everything, having a few laughs. Andrea's probably saying, since it's one of her first times, she's saying like, "Hey, how about if I do it like this? What do you think?" And they're just like, "Oh my God, brilliant!" Because she did a great job. And so I'm sure when they were rehearsing together, they were probably very happy with it. They're probably like, "Oh, this is gonna be great," And it's just fun to picture that camaraderie that they must have had working on these things together.
Yeah, the same thought crossed my mind. I thought about those rehearsals at Armin's place, and I felt like a lot of the beats were already timed out between the actors. They knew what they wanted to get done, which probably made it a whole hell of a lot easier for Renee
Exactly.
on the directing side, right? He's like, "All right, you guys already know what you're gonna do, and I'll just light it and set it up." Um, and there were beats there that I wanted to bring up too that I thought were non-scripted beats.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
for example, when Quark is headed to the airlocks and he's about to leave to go see his mom and work this whole thing out, Rom comes running up behind him and says, "Hey, I'm going with you, brother." And um, Quark tries to talk him out of it, but then finally agrees. He says, "All right, fine, you're coming." But that whole scene, Quark had a bag over his shoulder. That was his little duffel bag to go. And at the end of the scene, they finish their exchanges, and Quark's like, "All right, fine, you can come." And the bag he takes off and throws it to Rom, like, "You carry this," right?
Like he's his porter.
Yeah, and I felt like that was a natural. I don't know if that was scripted. I felt like that's something that Armin would just do.
Interesting.
Like, yeah, I feel like
Interesting.
that's something that Armin would just say, "You know what? Here, you take this." since you're coming, no, you got to hold this.
And so Armin's like, Renee, what do you think of this? And he plays it, and then Renee goes, huh, I like it. Keep it. I like it, Armin.
I like it. Yes. So that was one of the beats that I felt like that was just them working out so much timing, having so much rhythm, and just like he can create that on the fly. And it just felt like it was created on the fly. If you watch it again, the way the bag is holding, it almost like he realizes at the last second, like, oh yeah, here, take this. So I may be wrong, but I just feel like that's one thing that they added just because they had so much chemistry and it worked out all the timing.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I do try to catch things where I wonder, was that an actor's choice, or was that a director's note, or was that just written into the script? And because it's always that trifecta of possibilities. And most of the time, I'll never know. I ask you, and sometimes other times we're just like, well, maybe. It was probably Avery, is what we usually say.
Yeah, sometimes yeah, exactly. Sometimes you'll know if you can remember the details of this, the subscript of the script. So that's not an easy thing to do. I made a note of Moogie's earrings because I just thought the way the earrings came down and connected in the middle like necklaces was kind of an interesting wardrobe choice for the guys.
Yeah, they've got some peculiar jewelry on Ferenginar, I guess.
They do. But I did like the outfits that they were wearing. I think Quark might be the best dressed, if not, one of the best dressed characters.
Yikes.
He just has all these layers in this. I mean, he's really got nice outfits. Ram as well had some pretty decent outfit wardrobe changes in this one. And I like the dress that Moogie was wearing. It's kind of this, hip, colorful, looks like cocktail dress from the 50s that was all studded out and a little bit baggier, but I liked it.
Yeah, I looked on IMDb, and that was actually Andrea's only time playing Moogie, apparently. And the other actress, I can't remember her name at the moment, must have taken over from there, but I don't know why they got a different actress to play her later on. You wouldn't happen to know, would you?
No, that part I don't know. One thing did jump out at me was that I felt like she was a little bit young, because you could tell underneath that prosthetics that she was probably younger than Quark and
a young buck. Yeah,
or at least the same age as them. So it didn't register that she was an older woman underneath the makeup. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Interesting. So we're going to go to our break in a hot, juicy second. Do want to tell you that we'll have the trivioids on the other side. We also have a few NAMs to go over. I'm sure you caught some NAMs, some very, very important NAMs. Those are non-appearance mentions. Also, a quick shout out to our good friend, Mr. Mohamed Noor, who is one of our newest associate producers and is helping out a ton with the upcoming virtual Trek Con. So shout out to our buddy, Mr. Mohamed Noor, the Dean of Natural Sciences at Duke University. I can't talk anymore. We should have just taken our break. At Duke University. And he's also a science consultant for Star Trek, but he can't tell you anything about it until it's all over. No juicy tidbits from him. Anyway.
No spoilers.
Yeah, nothing. So we're going to come right back on the other side on the seventh rule.